welcome to a very special episode of Codename New to Vero2. Hi, I'm your presenter, Shabu RU. Here we are with Cobra Convergence 4. Well, this isn't really my official video for Cobra Convergence 4, but the issue in itself compelled me to hold off a little bit because I wanted to do it in Cobra Convergence 4. This is one of those issues that is just so heartfelt. Even if you're not a G.I. Joe fan, this issue will touch the hearts and strings of everybody. If you're a red-blooded American, you will appreciate this issue. And you could tell from my reaction when I saw the cover. In the story context, could Revenge have brought back the dead Joes? No, this is actually a tribute to Memorial Day and veterans in itself. That's why I wanted to wait this month. I have not hid the fact that I am proud of who I am and my father. My family has given so much to this country. My dad was probably one of the first Indian-born U.S. Marines to serve during the Vietnam era. Before that, my dad was a recipient of President Kennedy's PT boat pin from the president himself. That letter and that pin sits proudly in my parents' living room for all to see. The one thing that I wanted to also touch is that this issue has such an emotional impact no matter who you are. For me, again, my dad. I remember in high school, I would take summer classes that were run by the local community college. Ironically, they were held at my father's old high school, John F. Kennedy High School. He would drop me off and he wouldn't go out like the way we came in. He would go around the back, and I was wondering why he always did that. Well, one day I followed him and I found him at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, looking at names and sobbing. And he would say, and then I went up, Dad, what are you doing here? He's like, this kid, tell me the story about how this kid came and protected him or defended him. When my dad came to this country, kids would come up to him. It was during segregation. So even though it was in the North, kids would come up to my dad and say, hi, I'm Abraham Lincoln, I freed you. My dad was just excited, so somebody wanted to be nice to him. And these kids, defended my father. As they went through high school, they all went to Vietnam. My dad went to, University of Philadelphia. My dad was eager to enlist because his friends were coming back in body bags and he wanted to go over there to save them and protect them. And, of course, the ideas of why America is the greatest country in the world because of the freedoms. But that just shows you what true friends is about. And we see that in this issue. Friends that can stand their classmates coming back in body bags. And also wanted to bring attention to not just those that are gone, but those that are still living. A lot of veterans suffer from PTSD and survivor's guilt. I mean, if you're able to, we need to help our veterans better. I know from my time in the government, I came back and I had PTSD. Sometimes I have bad days. Sometimes I have good days. But I keep pushing. Some people can't do that. And that's why we need to help those people out. So as we do this comic recap, take a minute and think about not just the ones that we've lost in our wars stemming from the Revolution, the War of 1812, all the way down to currently what's going on. Think about the ones that are still living and what we could do as a nation to help them. So with that, let's go into issue 263. Some gave all. As with every issue, I love to cover the different cover variants. And this one just leaps and grabs you. When you see the deceased Joes walking towards you, it is just gripping. And I'm going to be cross-referencing issues 109, 113, and 241. So Especially with 109, it's a must read if you're a Joe fan. But this is for you guys to do extra reading if you haven't. Reread those issues. S.L. Gallant and Brian Shaw return in this special issue. And the different cover variants, we got A, B, and look at this special Austin Comic Con exclusive cover. That is awesome. We begin with Storm Shadow and Stalker making their annual pilgrimage to the Vietnam War Memorial Wall in D.C. Guys and gals, I highly recommend to stop during your visit to the nation's capital. And just remember, each name is a life, a family. Their souls can hear you. Say thank you. They are here to remember two members of their LLRP team, Dickie and Ramon. Recall that Snake Eyes and Wade Collins were also members of this team. Dickie fell to a landmine. My personal most hated thing. You know how many kids I saw with lost legs to those cursed things? Ramon died while returning enemy fire during a Viet Cong ambush. The dialogue between Stormy and Stalker is compelling. In essence, part of them died in Vietnam, while the other part is still struggling to come to terms with what happened. I want to pause here and talk about something. Currently in G.I. Joe, they're actually using the Gulf War as a timestamp more so than the Vietnam War because it's more believable than having 70-year-old guys. It's impossible. But for this issue, they're going back to Vietnam. While paying respect to Ramon, they spot Wade Collins, who became a Crimson Guard after Nam, only to be redeemed by his buddies. He asks, surprisingly, how Sean is doing. Recall that him and his family are not supposed to know that Sean is alive and assuming the Snake Eyes' his identity. But maybe Stalker and Stormy let him know to ease his mind and, as a token of their friendship. So the Collins family knows that Sean is alive. We next cross the Potomac and enter Robert E. Lee's front yard, also known as Arlington National Cemetery, where we meet Duke and Roadblock. They go down the list of all the Joes that died, especially in issue 109 and issue 113. They reflect on their first appearance in G.I. Joe back in issue number 22 during General Flagg's funeral. Recall that it was both Duke and Roadblock's first appearance in the comic book. They arrive and, they see the Rattler and he shoots it down. Issue 109, as I said, is one of the must-read issues of G.I. Joe. Just imagine being a kid. It's the first time you had a sense that war is not fun and games. People die. So as a young kid, you're not dumbed down. You're told that war is not glorious. People die in wars. And characters that you love and collect are no longer alive. And it's a very important lesson to give to kids. And it shows how Larry Hama didn't write down to us, talk to us with some intelligence. The one thing you'll note when you go to Arlington, you'll see a Christian cross next to a Jewish star, next to a Islamic moon crescent of soldiers that it's not about religion. They were Americans and they bled and died together. I want to emphasize that point. That's what it means to be American. I next bring up issue 113. It was another issue where a large amount of Joes die in one shot. Let's be honest, Battle Force 2000 for a toy line wasn't successful. So it was kind of easy, all right, this didn't work out, let's just get rid of him. But again, like its significance in this storyline because it just shows that the Joes have taken really extreme hits time and time again. And again, here's the issue 22 flashback of Roadblock and Duke. Now, Cobra is nuts to, like, how do you piss off the Joes is like, attack the funeral of, General Flag. That's ballsy, man. Now, I also highly recommend the special missions. I believe it was issue 252 of Duke's special missions. It shows how him and Roadblock first joined up during the Gulf War, and it shows what led them to join G.I. Joe. I mean, those issues, are excellent, and I love them so much. Of course, it's IDW Moderns. Now, next we have Roadblock and Duke. They see Doc's parents at his grave site, and his mom tells Duke that, I hated you. I blamed you for my son's death. But over time, I knew that this is what he wanted. And I know that we're grieving together. And, they embrace. But Doc's death, man, that was... Doc, I mean, reading that as a kid was... I remember that scene, and that was like, oh my God, they killed Doc. Like, everybody loves Doc. That was tough. But again, this scene illustrates parents grieving for their sons. We saw during the, that Gold Star recipient, Khan, Sergeant Khan, how his mother and father, how they dealt with their son's death. It was tough. We next segue to San Francisco, to the Arashikage school, and we see them, Budo is leading a prayer and memorial for the hard and soft master, both brothers, and we know their famous story. I think a lot of issues covered their death, so I can't, break them all down. There's probably like 6 different issues that covers each of their death. The only thing I find weird is that Budo is leading this memorial service, and he is not really part of the Arashikage clan. I mean, he teaches the students, but that's what I find compelling during this scenes. Now we go to the pit back in Utah, and they have a tradition. I guess they're going to do roll calls. So even though each member that's lost is symbolized with the helmet and a gun, and roll call is commenced. We segue now to Japan. Granny, who, if you've been following me, she's the matriarch of the Arashikage clan. She's the one that holds the records. She's the gatekeeper, while Storm Shadow is the supreme leader. She is just beneath Storm Shadow. And we see a group of red ninjas. I can't believe they're still alive. If you follow Dawn of the Arashikage, I thought Dawn Marino destroyed all of them. But apparently there's still some around. She's so intimidating that she's like, all right, I came here on an off day to avoid confrontation. But because even though it's a religious day, I will kill you all. And the red ninjas scattered because they were scared to death of Granny. Now, this is the latest casualty, and a lot of Joe fans, especially old school fans, have no idea that in issue 241, Sneak Peek died in Darkolia. So he is buried there, and his death was sad. Like, they had to go to a veterinary, and a vet had to extract the bullet. He just essentially bled out. And there was nothing the Flint or Lady J could do. His love interest is a girl named Katya, who's the leader of the Darkonia Resistance Force. She actually appears in issue 252 during the Baroness's special missions. The Baroness saves her when she's a little girl from a sniper. And later on, she grows up and becomes the leader. She falls in love with Sneak Peek during the events of issue 240 to 241. And it's that love interest and that love that, sneak peek is like, you know what? He wanted to die in Dark Clothing because that's where his heart is. And she's like, I'm going to always look after his grave. So, because it's Memorial Day, she comes and pays her respects to him. So this guy is supposedly trying to, gets wind of this and wants to snipe her. She gets to jump on him and boom, busts a cap in his ass. Now, the next one is really difficult, and I highly recommend going back to my coverage of issue number 255 of the Scarlet Special Missions, and it shows more of an intimate side of her and Snake Eyes' relationship and why all of this scene makes sense. She goes on the Staten Island ferry and orders 2 hot dogs and 2 coffees, something that her and Snake Eyes would always do on their little days off together. And man, this really hurts. I mean, we see Scarlet as this tough, strong woman, but she lost the love of her life in Snake Eyes, and she has to go on being that strong female and leader for the GIJOE team. Now, we're at Snake Eyes' cabin in the High Sierras, and we see Timber out. This is really, if you're an animal lover, this is going to get you, because I know my cats love me to death. If something happened to me, I'm sure that they would soon follow. But we see Timber running through the woods, jumping on top of the cabin and howling into the night for Snake Eyes. So emotional and heartfelt. This is one of those issues that you will not forget. And I'm glad we got to go through it together. We're going to go back into the artificial intelligence in issue 264. The action continues with more from Cobra Convergence 4. So be sure to check on the HCC 78's list and go to those different channels and subscribe. You remember, this is fan for fan content, and it's a celebration of us as fans. We don't have a corporate run celebration. It's not what Star Wars has turned to be. This is a grassroots fan run thing. So I hope you support us, and I hope you join and participate. And let's keep this going.